I was bagging up, coming out of the truck. I was gagging because I couldn't breathe. And I found out that I had the supervisor had given me the wrong respirator. So when I got off the truck, I pulled the respirator off because I was throwing up. And the supervisor, he came over to me, and he said, Jeanette, he said, you know, we hired in around the same time, and we had to die sometime. And the sad part about it, his lungs collapsed 2 weeks later.
The A.E. Staley plant in Decatur, Illinois, processes corn into starches, syrups, and sweeteners. 800 workers there are represented by the Allied Industrial Workers Union. Since September 1992, they have engaged in a battle for their lives, their health, and the future of their community, all which they say is threatened by corporate greed.
What you see on the outside when you pass in front or over the viaduct, it's a different animal on the inside. I mean, they're hot. A lot of the buildings are old and outdated, and there's just miles and miles of pipe and conduit and conveyors and equipment and piles of either fresh or soured production. And when you get in the refinery and the starch areas, it's either all white and dusty and very explosive, or in some of the areas like the refinery where they do the sweeteners and the syrup, it's sticky and extremely hot.
The plant at Decatur today is a chemical plant. Dave said it best of all. It's a chemical plant. 20 years ago, 25 years ago, we didn't have the chemicals out there we have today. They use it today to speed up the process, you know, and there's caustic, there's sulfuric acid, there's ethylene oxide, propylene oxide, there's chlorine. It's a chemical plant. And people have to be schooled and educated as to how to handle those chemicals. It could blow up the whole end of town out there.
In 1988, A.E. Staley of Decatur was bought by Tate & Lyle, the largest sweetener conglomerate in the world. Based in London, England, Tate & Lyle has acquired other sweetener companies around the world, including its best-known brand, Domino Sugar. Tate & Lyle implemented harsh labor policies and ignored environmental regulations in its new facilities, thus reaping additional profits. It also quickly amassed record fines from the Occupational Safety and Health Administration and from the Environmental Protection Agency. 1/3 of Tate & Lyle's $400 million in profit in 1991 was from its Staley subsidiary.
In 1988, Tate & Lyle took over and immediately started ignoring the contract and not what we thought they were going to be as far as a parent company. Staley management began to take a different focus on how they treated and worked with employees. Safety and health is one of the things that started to deteriorate as well.
In 1990, Staley's deteriorating safety conditions cost Jim Beals his life. Beals was killed when toxic propylene oxide gas was released into the cornstarch processing tank in which he and Jerry Sumner were making repairs. Larry Shook was the safety man on the job.
Jim had just written a grievance about the handling of the propylene oxide in the plant.
He had been to the union hall that afternoon, telling them, and wrote a safety observation that somebody was going to get seriously hurt with these chemicals that afternoon.
He wrote it.
It's on file.
It's on file. That, you know, the handling of the propylene oxide, unqualified people, according to OSHA, there's supposed to be the minimum amount of people, you know, qualified to do this so that, you know, it don't overlap. You need a qualified person to do it. And there's only
explosive.
it was pipe fitters the only ones supposed to work around this propylene as far as the handling of it, and they've been violating this.
They think more of production than they do life right now. Because never, in as long as I was over there, and I was in that area longer than anyone, did they ever run both reactors. One reactor without the other, without shutting it down.
I got down into the vessel, and Jim Beals followed me in. So we were in there, I don't know, we'd been in there maybe 10 minutes. And me and Jim see some water, looked like water, coming down from one of the holes in the top of this vessel. we hauled her at Larry, they're pumping something in on us. And I was in there maybe 10, 15 seconds before I was suffocating. And by this time it was really pouring in, you know. At first it looked like a shower head around the outside of this pipe. And it was coming in, we knew it was PO. And I told Jim, I'm getting the so-and-so out of here. And he says, but that's PO. I remember closing my eyes and holding my breath and grabbing hold of one of the arms, thinking, well, maybe I can slide along the bottom, because I was suffocating for air, you know, and it was just that fast.
It takes the oxygen out of the air that quick. That's what it does.
So I remember sliding towards the opening, and I was out of it. I remember going towards a light, you know, but I had my eyes closed, so they told me it was probably a lack of oxygen, made you see the light they were always talking about. I remember, the next thing I remember, I had my head outside the vessel, and I couldn't breathe. I got out, and I was on fire. I mean, all the areas on you that had the soft skin were just burning. My face on fire from this PO.
We was thinking, man, we got to do something. Well, Jerry's yelling at Jim when he comes out of there. He's soaked with it. Now, can you imagine knowing that it's carcinogenic to you if you get it on you? He's covered with it. He went to get another one.
It was not working.
Yeah.
They had 15 Scott Air Packs in the plant, and not one of them in the whole plant was charged over 30%. They were all useless. Outside this room, there's emergency oxygen, 10 bottles of oxygen along the wall. They were all empty.
It was a comedy of errors. Nothing that they had for our safety worked. They had oxygen bottles downstairs outside and had a tube, not a tube, plastic rubber hose that run from outside up to this vessel, to these vessels, and you're supposed to be able to go down there and turn them on. Nothing worked.
I can remember trying to go back in the hole, and above this hole there was I-beam supports, okay? And the I-beam, probably 12-inch I-beam, and all these gases were trapping up there. It was 175 degrees. And I do remember I had my head back in there. I do remember seeing Jim sitting there, and he hadn't even moved. I remember seeing his shirt and, you know, hollering and screaming at him, but he didn't even move. He was still in the same position. You know, the company was completely in the wrong doing this. It's getting back the way it was.
It's probably worse than it was right after the accident. It's a public relations thing to let the community know that they're really doing something about it. But the truth of it is, it's completely opposite of that.
The safety at the A.E. Staley Company is hard hat and safety glasses and banners at the gate. And despite what Larry Pillard says, safety is not a reality in a plant. And I think that can be best depicted by the fact that we no longer have full-time safety trainers from the union. We no longer have a full-time safety chairman for the union. And there's only really 2 people left in the safety department with very little experience in the plant.
They don't care. They really don't even care about their company people either. They got company people. They got engineers. There's this lady. She's 26 years old. She's going to be running a supervisory job in the dry starch area. She's an engineer. She has no idea what's even going on. She's just there, you know, and it's like, you know, what's going to happen if somebody gets hurt or injured or something? She has no idea what's going on. She won't even know what floor. If someone says the dryers are down, she won't even know where to go.
And drums weren't labeled, and the operator had told me to go upstairs and dip so many canfuls of this liquid in this drum up there and dump it in this tank next to it. So the liquid was towards the bottom of this 55-gallon drum. I had to take the lid off and dip. I had to get my body down in there to get it, the liquid. So I got it on my hands and my arms, but I didn't know what it was. So I dumped it, did what he told me to do, and about a half hour later I started getting sick. I had stomach cramps real bad, and I was sick to my stomach. So I went down to first aid, and they said, well, you must be having a touch of the flu or something. So when I came back, and it got worse, so I went home. I only had a couple hours left of work, but I was just too sick. So I went home, and then when I came back to work that night, I found out that in that drum was rat poison. It was rat poison. I had it all over my arms and all over my hands. I guess my skin absorbed it. That's why I was sick.
As far as the safety issues, my own personal experience with it was with the chlorine leak they had here about a week or so ago. Our supervisor was warned that there was a chlorine leak, and he took it upon himself not to inform the rest of the building. So no one knew about it until it was over with. And I found out later on that the chlorine is very dangerous. You can die from it.
So they sent me back into maintenance. Okay, this was about in August after the May accident. I'd been a year and 4 months later. They sent me over to the reactor room to check on one of these seals. Okay, we go up to the door. The big door on here says, check with your foreman for the SOP, the standing operating proceeding, before you enter this room, okay? We call the supervisor. He don't even know what I'm talking about. He has no idea. It's amazing that, you know, after somebody loses their life and they still don't, you know, have a standard operating procedure for doing work on something like that.
It's a sad thing that the people of the community have only the media to understand what's going on. It's awful bias. They tell one side of the story, and as far as any of the workers, we never, you know, we just go do our job.
Their attitude on safety. If you stand up, they're going to try to take you down.
The rack had a bunch of black, scummy goo all over it, you know. They didn't know what it was, had no idea what it was. And the guys told me to clean it up. And I said, do you know what this is? He says, no, I don't think I know what it is. I said, well, it's an unknown substance. We have to find out what it is before I can clean it up. He says, I think it'll be all right. We just used a scraper and started scraping it up. He didn't have a facial on. He was just scraping this stuff up, you know. He had no idea what it was. So I refused to do it, and he got mad that I refused to do it. He told me to go back up on my job. Well, come to find out, it was a toxic material. It was below 3.0 pH. And because of that, that means it had to be dealt with and had to be disposed of a certain way. And what I was supposed to do was wear a rubber suit with rubber gloves, taped up with a face shield and everything else, and rubber boots to clean this up. And I got reprimanded.
We had one deal, one of the guys down there that was the operator, Mr. Brazel was the head of the cogen, called him up in his office and was going to give him time off, reprimand him, because we wouldn't hook plant air up to a caustic truck.
The truck driver wanted to hook our plant air up. He's supposed to use his own air. Several years ago down there, they had one of the delivery guys come in, hook our plant air up. This caustic, the line come loose, and it just, I mean, it ate him up. He's blinded. We don't even know if he lived, really. They haven't told us anything, but his skin was falling off of him when he come into the lavatory downstairs for help. His skin was just falling off him. We do know he's blinded. And they wouldn't tell us what actually happened to him. We don't even know if this man lived.
When you work in different buildings out there, you're exposed to different chemicals and things. And in the boiler room, it has asbestos, lots of asbestos. And then in a building they shut down, 16 building, a lot of chemicals that cause cancer. One of the guys I worked with, who's like 44 years old, over in the boiler room, just last December, it might have been November, when he went in for his physical, they found a spot on his lung, and it's cancer.
I went to the hospital, had half my right lung removed. 4 or 5 months later, they cut my benefits. I felt like I had to go back to work. I think the cancer came from Staley's. What I had was large cell cancer, which is only found in 16% of lung cancer patients. That's pretty rare cancer, so I'm saying it came from what I ingested at Staley's. The conditions I work in, there's asbestos hanging off the walls in the boiler room. That's my basic job, is working in the boiler room. There is asbestos everywhere. My other job is working in waste treatment. They use all kinds of chemicals to treat their water with over there. I'm around every bit of that. I've had half my lung removed, and they did not take that in consideration whatsoever. Apparently they don't care about me, because if they did, they wouldn't have cut my benefits and forced me back into the plant. All we're asking for is a fair contract, something that we can live with.
In September 1992, Staley presented its workers with a contract that further undermined worker safety and health. Workers refused to agree to the contract. Staley began to unilaterally implement its conditions. In March 1993, Staley forced its employees to work mandatory rotating 12-hour shifts instead of normal 8-hour workdays. Each shift is from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. or 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. Staley employees work 3 12-hour days in a row, have 3 days off, 3 on, 3 off, and so on, changing shifts every 30 days. This replacement of the regular calendar with a corporate calendar allows Staley to increase its employees' work time 100 hours per year. This means workers never have the same days off each week. In addition to the physical toll on workers, they are always out of sync with their families and the rest of the community.
We both have headaches all the time from lack of sleep. Everything's disturbed. Even to be, very plain about it, even your bodily functions are disturbed. You're tired, so you're not as alert. Yeah. Your reaction time slows down. Especially if they ask you to, well, they don't ask, they tell you to report on your day off.
In a few days, we're going to be rotating back to days. And that, you can't get used to this going from one.
And there's 3 days off that you have with your family. When you work the night shift, the first day, when you get off at 6 a.m., you lose that because you're napping all day. The second day, you're still kind of groggy, so you're doing a few things around the house or going to family functions. By the third day, you start to really, you get your strength back, you got your sleep, and
Time to go back.
The way they are managing the plant today, or mismanaging the plant, I should say, they have generated a lot of major hazards both to the employees there and the community at large.
The ethylene oxide was used in some of the bombs, the cluster bombs in Iraq, and they were using 40 pounds, approximately to 40 to 70 pounds in the cluster bombs, and we are using 100,000 pounds just in the process. So you can see that the potential there to the community, and this community should be aware of this, and they should be alarmed.
You walk in there and you don't know if you're going to blow up or whatever.
They don't care what happens to Nancy Hanna. They don't care what happens in Decatur. They don't have to see it. They don't have to hear it. All they do is give the orders. You do this. If you don't do it, I'll get somebody else to do it.
I don't know whether they think about us as being human beings, and it don't make no difference what we have to sacrifice to get them more money. That's what they want.
Everybody was infuriated with this management that was kicking us around and treating you like a dog and showing you I'm the boss and you're nothing and this is the way it's going to be. The company tried and hoped that they could intimidate us enough to get mad enough to lose our cool and to strike. But it was clear had we chose to strike, we would have been starved into submission very quick. These multinationals use all of these financial backers and all these fancy law firms and all of these things with these big heavy hitters to come at you from every angle.
Workers are fighting not just Staley Company, but a powerful web of corporate alliances. Staley's parent company, Tate & Lyle, may be in England, but Staley has a powerful domestic ally in its assault on its workers. That ally is Decatur neighbor Archer Daniels Midland, an $8.5 billion agribusiness giant. ADM is supposedly a competitor of Staley, but through a British subsidiary, ADM actually owns a controlling interest in Tate & Lyle. Thus, ADM stands to benefit from the defeat of Staley workers, not only because such a defeat would set the tone for labor relations in Decatur, but because ADM stands to benefit directly from Tate & Lyle's profiteering. Acting on this tangled alliance, ADM built a pipeline in Decatur between its plant and Staley's to provide product to Staley in the event of a strike or lockout. ADM is pursuing labor policies similar to those now demanded of Staley workers, including 12-hour shifts. ADM has also left a trail of federal violations on safety and health and violations of antitrust. For example, in 1978, ADM was convicted of conspiring to fix prices on foodstuffs sold to the Food for Peace program. The company is also a heavy polluter, releasing 1.9 million pounds of toxic substances into Decatur's air, water, and soil each year. At the head of ADM is Dwayne Andreas, a powerful political operator in both the Republican and Democratic parties. ADM was the largest contributor of so-called soft money to both political parties in the last presidential election, making Andreas one of the country's most powerful political figures. Connecting this web of corporate spiders is the insurance empire State Farm Mutual, based in Bloomington, Illinois. State Farm is the largest bond and stockholder in ADM. It is also the largest bondholder in other anti-union companies, including Caterpillar.
The corporations and the financial institutions have joined their economic and political power to fight workers and to fight their unions. So basically, what we're saying to workers and the unions and other sympathizers, it's our solidarity versus theirs. They have a coalition of power. To meet that power head on, we have to build coalition strength and take them on.
Continue to get the public opinion and sympathies, and we worked with the clergies in the community and got the churches involved and got more strength from the spouses and family involved, and we've just grown it.
What we have now is over 200 people on an average coming in, and as a body on the floor making this pretty strong decisions on what we do inside the plant, outside the plant.
You can't fight just strictly from the outside. You got to fight from inside and outside.
For the better part of those 9 months, the workers engaged in one of the most creative and ultimately empowering activities that I've seen in years.
We have safety stand-downs, safety confrontations with supervision.
I work to rule.
I work to rule.
You do what you're told to do. And that's all. What makes it tough for the company is their average supervisor has less than 3 years seniority in that plant. I have 25 years on the same job, and they're going to tell me how to run my job. We are just letting them know they need us to run that plant.
This is the most solid group of people I've ever seen in my life. They do things, they do it as a whole. It's almost like a school of fish. When one turns, they all turn.
And you membership and took direction and you took control, and I applaud you for it.
Hundreds of Allied industrial workers, their family members, and friends converged at that address to protest in front of A.E. Staley's manufacturing headquarters. The grain processing company locked out its hourly workers Sunday.
Staley's executive vice president says the union's in-plant work strategy has made a return to normal operations impossible.
Who locked you out? Well, as far as I'm concerned, Staley, Tate Lyle, Domino Sugar locked you out. It's all one and the same thing. There's no question, again, that ADM and Tate Lyle are much one and the same. There's another thing there, percent of ownership in Decatur. How much of Decatur does ADM and Dwayne Andreas own? And by that I don't just mean physical property. How much of the politicians does it own? Okay, how much of the community and business leaders does it own? All of it. All of it. Okay, how much direction is this company and Dwayne Andreas given to go out and bust the unions so that Decatur really becomes a 21st century company town where they prey on the workers and they prey on the environment? State Farm has a controlling interest in Archie Daniels Midland. And if State Farm wanted ADM and Dwayne Andreas to do something, they have the power to force them to do it.
This is about all workers everywhere. It's our solidarity versus theirs.
Help Staley workers win this fight. Boycott Domino Sugar. Don't buy State Farm Insurance. And send a contribution today to help see the union on to victory. Send your contributions to AIW Local 837, 2882 North Deneen, Decatur, Illinois, 62526.
Working at this job is dirty and dangerous, and I'm taking risks anyway. Oh, if I had the time and the proper equipment, I could do my
A brotherhood kind of thing, and a sisterhood kind of thing.
Here says the sickness with safety, and I'm not here to say that they lie. I'm saying we just come to work here. We don't come to die. I don't want your chemicals clouding my brain. I want to keep all of my fingers and toes.
If people don't stand up to these corporations, they're going to use words like competitiveness to drive the wages down, and I would say unvalue the working class. They're going to devalue the working class.
We don't come to die. Now while you're up there talking in an air-conditioned office on a telephone that's OSHA approved, go on and tell me how much you've been spending on safety. Pardon me, I'm not moved. There's only one way to put an end to the slaughter. Just look
all workers, not only in the United States, but probably in the world, have got just as many rights to a decent standard of living as do the powerful or the governments and the big business people that think it all belongs to them. We create the wealth. We suffer probably the most enduring consequences by being exposed to the hazards of creating this wealth, and they live in these air-conditioned, climate-controlled environments, and we're in the sweatshops, and people deserve better standards of living, better life, more voice and control in how they're effective on the job with health and safety, and their families are...